some time ago my wife asked me to make her a sunflower out of wood. So I thought I'd give it a try, and so I looked online and see if I could find one that I could make a pattern. So then I found one. There's some Russian guy did this, and I'll show you a more detailed one here, but as you can see, it's a real intricate design, and he used a real soft wood. I'm not sure what kind he used, but he made like a real short, like a 2-minute video showing some of the stages of this, and it's just still photos, but you can see something from it. And the chip, just looking at the chips that the guy made when he's building this, you can tell it's a really soft wood. In fact, it looks like it's really, you know, like cutting soap or something. Anyway, I don't have whatever kind of wood that is that he's got, so I got a little bit of mahogany left. Thought I'd try to use it up. Now, I looked real close at the picture the guy had online, and with him carving it, and judging by the length of his forearm, you know, an average length of the forearm, compare it right next to the piece that he's making, it looked to me like it was about 18 inches long, you know, the long dimension, and it looked to me like it was about 1.5 to 2 inches thick. So I don't have enough wood to do it quite that big, but I wanted to make it as big as I could. So I went ahead and cut me some wood. These aren't the actual pieces, but just to show you, I'm starting with something 4 inches by 1 inch thick, and I glued some pieces together this way, and then after that I glued them this way, and got 3 wide is what I did, and I went 14.5 inches long this way, and 11.5 inches is what I ended up with on the other side. So this thing I downloaded here, this picture is 8.5 by 11, so it's not the right size. But my computer printer has a copy feature that I can change the size of the copy, so I went ahead and enlarged it on several pieces of paper and then cut them out and made a bigger one for a pattern. Now this pattern is what you do is you kind of tape it to your block of wood and then put some carbon paper on there, underneath there, and trace it onto the wood. And then when you do that, you got something to work with. I thought I'd talk just a brief moment about safety, because you're working with sharp tools, and it's kind of dangerous if you're not careful. So begin with, get you one of these. It's a leather shop apron, about $100, but it's worth it. And believe me, I wished I'd have had this on about a month ago, because I stabbed myself with this. Had to go to the ER and get stitched up. So be careful when you're working with this stuff. What else you need is a little bit of technique. If you're cutting like this, hold this with both hands, or rest your forearm on the table or something like that to where it can't get away. Because when you cut into some wood, sometimes it gets a weak place and just cuts right on through, which is what happened to me. And if you're using a gouge, grab it this way and then push it in or something like that. But the point is, try to use 2 hands for everything if you can. One to provide the power and the other one to guide it and steady it. In addition to that, certain types of cuts. These are Kevlar gloves. If you're holding your part, or you know your fingers are going to be close to where you're cutting, then put this on. And it's better to hold the part with a vise or a clamp anytime you're cutting. Don't try to hold it with your hand and cut. I mean, whittlers do that, but that's just a different type of carving. One last thing, if you're doing light cutting, like a knife or a gouge, you're not going to believe it, but you still get sawdust coming off of that, especially in certain types of wood. So I suggest you wear one of these, just a lightweight mask. And if you're doing router work, or if you're doing any kind of sawing or anything like that, put a better dust mask on, one with a ventilator. And that way when you're wearing your reading glasses so you can still see what you're doing, it won't fog up so bad. That's it. Okay, after I glued the slab together, I mentioned I traced the outline of the pattern onto it, and then I went over it again with a ballpoint pen to make sure it's in ink. And then the guy in the video, it didn't show this, but he had a kind of a fancy scroll saw. I think it was an electric one. I looked them up and they're like $1,000, and I'm not spending $1,000 to do that, but that's what he used to outline or trim around the outside. In fact, I think he used the same tool to do some of these inside pieces. He cut out the ones, and I did too, the ones that go all the way through the part. So it's just helping to get rid of some wood and begin to shape the piece right early on. So since I didn't have that kind of saw, and I wasn't going to spend $1,000, I did a different way. Starting with the flat slab, I went around the outline here with a knife and just chipped it out down about 1/4 of an inch all the way around, and even inside these other places. And then after being down 1/4 of an inch, I decided to try to use a router for the outside. So I went and got me a 1/4 inch router bit, and maybe you can see it here. It's a straight shank, so the cutting flutes there are at the same level as the shank, and that's what I wanted, because when I went in here and did it, I used the place where I had already used a knife and cut it down 1/4 of an inch. I used that to guide the part all the way around, and it worked out pretty damn good, actually, as long as you don't go too fast so it don't chip out. But go down there, and as you can see, it wasn't enough to get all the way through. So then I rechucked it in after I did this all the way around, I rechucked it in the router to get another hold of it so I can do the rest of the cut. Went all the way through it like that, and it worked out even on some of these internal ones that are big enough where I can get this tool in there. I went and did it that way. To get a pilot hole through the part on the inside, I had to use a drill, and I used as small a drill bit as I could, about 1/8 of an inch or 3/16, and I had some long ones. But then when you drill, you need to make sure that it's perpendicular, perfectly perpendicular to the piece, so that it doesn't run out, you know, as you're going through the part, because these petals and different parts of this are at different levels inside the wood. So to make sure it's accurate, you got to make these perpendicular. To do that, I used I made a little guide here, and this is a poplar wood, fairly hard, and glued and screwed this piece here in there. And to make it a little more durable, the drill bit goes in this corner here, so to make it more durable, I had a piece of old hacksaw that I just broke off, and then I ground the teeth off of it and glued it onto the wood. So the way you do it, you hold it like this, and you put your drill in your drill bit in here like this, and you hold it tight against that corner and just drill it through, and it'll be perpendicular. Set that on here like this and just go right on down through it. So that's how you do that. Then next thing, I've made a, like I said, I'm starting late on this video, so I'm going to show you where I'm at with it. It's still rough where I've been cutting, and so what I mean by that, some of these ribbon pieces here are going to be real fragile when they get thin. So this is not the final cut at all by any means. I really just wanted to get it to where I could see where I'm at, and later on I'll go make them a little bit thinner as I get towards the end, because if I make them thin now, I'm afraid I'm going to rest my hand on it and bust it. So I didn't do that yet. A lot of places I'm using a saw to get rid of to make a cut that's way down, especially on these leaves here. This leaf is way down here at the bottom, so I wanted to get through all that wood as fast as I can, and like a little hacksaw is way faster than a knife, so I've been using a saw wherever I can do it. You need some straight cut to do it, but there's some places you can do that and get in there. So the thing about a relief carving like this is it's kind of 3D, but it's not perfect 3D. It's designed to view it from the front like this, or a little bit of an angle, but not a lot of angle. So you're using light and shadows to outline everything. So if you look at it edgewise, it's not correct according to real life. It's kind of flattened out, but that's the way you do a relief, because otherwise the wood's got to be super thick to get there. Now, maybe you saw in the original drawing that I've got to do some detailed work in here, and to do that, of course, you got to start with making a line first. But then I'm going to use I made this out of an orange juice bottle, this plastic, and then made a circle on there, and I'm going to use that to be able to trace those lines in here to carve the seeds into that part. So that's just the kind of stuff you got to do. I'll make a different size for this one and so forth, but that's where I'm at so far, and hopefully I don't break it. But this is going to take months to make this properly. First of all, I can't work on it full time, and secondly, there's a lot of work to do. Well, I thought it'd be good to give an update. It's been a little while, and been doing a lot of work on this project, so got a couple of points I want to cover today. And first one is on this ribbon. I maybe mentioned earlier, I'm not going to go to the final thickness until the end because it gets real fragile. This is not a real strong wood anyway. And same thing with these petals. So what you see here is still rough. But eventually, towards the end, I'm going to feather that pretty close to a sharp edge, even on the edge of these petals. And over here is still real rough. But right now, I'm trying to get all the ribbon done, because at the moment I still got two places I can clamp this down to the table, and I like to do that as long as I can, because that's a good solid way to hold it while you're working on it with both hands. And later on, as I get towards the very end and there's nowhere to clamp it down, I'll have to use two-sided tape or something like that and stick it down on a piece of plywood. But right now I'm trying to get as much done as I can while I can hold it good, and try to shape all this stuff to real close to the final finish. And obviously I got a lot more to do, but I'm going to do all these areas that I've started to a real close to finish or finished state before I move on to these last two areas. And you're going to have to do some relief, as you can see, to make it look right. There's got to be some cuts on the back and to relieve the thing. Even if you don't have you know, a big void or something to look at, you need to taper back on things like this to make a sharp edge so that you get a shadow, and that way it brings out the outline of the piece better. But you can see on the back I'm doing quite a bit of work, and I got quite a bit more to do. And I'm gonna, when I get through with this part, I'm gonna, and I can clamp it still on this way too, but I'm gonna sand all this too. I mean, I got so much time invested in this, and hopefully it'll last 100 years. I'd like to make it look better, so I'm gonna do the back finish too. And I'm not ready for that now, but I will be cleaning all that up and making it look good. Well, get pretty far along with this carving, so I thought I'd better stop and make an update, make a report. I've got everything carved except for this one area that I've been using to clamp it down, and I'm going to save that for later. I'm going to have to stick this down onto a piece of plywood using two-sided carpet tape to finish that one, because there's nowhere else to clamp. Then before that though, I want to finish sanding everything else. So I've already done the back. You can see there's a lot of cutout in there where I've had to relieve everything, and then that's already sanded back here, so that's done. Now to finish this, I've got to get rid of all these tool marks. There's still some on there. They don't show up too bad, but I'm going to get rid of them. I've got some needle files to get into really tight areas to access that. Then I've got various stages of sanding. This is 80 grit, and pretty much for shaping or really bad areas where there's a mark. Then 100 grit, do everything in 100 grit, and then everything in 150 grit, and then finally 220 grit. When I get all that done, before moving on to each of the stages of sanding though, I'm going to take this into the garage and blow all that air off of it, or blow all that sawdust off of it, make sure there's no grit left from the rougher sandpaper. Because if you don't get that grit off, it'll just roll around and make another mark. So each stage, blow that off, and then finally I'm ready to finish it. So I'll cover that finishing one more segment after this later. Well, I got this carving, the sunflowers, all finished and sanded down to 220 grit, all sides, and took it into the shop and blew off all the sawdust thoroughly with about 100 psi air, and I'm getting ready to put a coating on it. Made a couple of little 2x4s here, screws to it to set it on. So after you paint it, you can put it on down, set it up so it'll dry. I'm going to put a coat of Minwax pre-stain conditioner on it first. This is supposed to soak way into the wood. It's real thin stuff. And wipe it off after 5 or 15 minutes. I'm going to go 5. Wipe it off and then let it dry overnight. Then I'm going to go with the polyurethane. This is clear gloss. It says fast drying, but it's going to dry overnight between coats too. I'm going to go at least 3 coats, maybe more. And for that I'm using a bristle brush, a cheap one, a 1/2 inch brush. I'll use some foil on it overnight, and then store it in a little Ziploc bag here to keep it from drying out, so I don't go through a whole bunch of brushes. We'll have to see how it turns out. This might be real interesting to do because of all the details, but we'll see what happens. Well, I finally finished this piece after several months of work. I decided to go with satin finish instead of the clear gloss, and I think it looks better on this kind of thing. It brings out the grain really well, and it's finished. Back looks pretty nice too, and I signed and dated it, so I'm ready to move on. Here it is up close. I'm going to follow up with a series of still pictures, but you can get a feel for what it looks like. So anyway, that's it. Later.